Welcome back to The Price of Business. I'm your host, Kevin Price, talking to you about you and your business. I think it's interesting. We had a guest on, Van Hipp, earlier in the program, and he was talking about the various presidential candidates and, you know, who is good and who is most likely to be commander-in-chief. You know, it's interesting because we live in a time now where people run without any political experience. I mean, Donald Trump very carefully and methodically made sure he didn't serve any time in the military, even as he criticizes other people's military service. And the vast majority of the presidential candidates on both sides have zilch as far as military experience, whereas in the history of our country, military service was almost a prerequisite for running for president of the United States. Really was until almost, I guess, Bill Clinton, at least, like for generations up to Bill Clinton. Even if it wasn't particularly glamorous, you know, Ronald Reagan flew around the, world doing pep talks to troops and, you know, kumbaya, you know, that type of thing in his military service. You know, and George Bush was the first one was a bona fide hero. I mean, that guy, like 20 years old, shot out of an airplane and that type of thing. So it's interesting to see all these guys as they talk, yet, you know, one of the things that John F. Kennedy said in his inaugural address was that they were tempered by war, disciplined by a hard and bitter peace. You know, and you don't have that. What you got is a lot of talk. You know, I for one, would be really remiss to talk about, you know, commitments, military commitments here, military action here, and that type of thing, simply because of my lack of experience. I've never wore boots, you know. So it's an interesting thought. What do you think about all this?
Well, who is the quote from?
The one that I just gave?
Yeah.
John F. Kennedy, his inaugural address, his first one.
Yeah. Yeah.
New generation of Americans are leading this country. Born in this century, tempered by war, disciplined by a hard and bitter peace.
See, the irony is that it really began with him, where that whole culture changed.
But he too is a bona fide hero.
Right. But what I'm saying is during his presidency, we started having Vietnam. We started having the problems with Americans, young Americans, not wanting, in fact, hating with all their fiber of their being, the military, not wanting to be involved, doing everything they could not to be involved. And so it started with him.
No, I understand that. But back to the topic at hand, which is, you're saying all these guys who are running now are products of that.
Well,
is that what you're saying?
The generation.
Okay.
Absolutely.
Yeah. But meanwhile, they talk a tough fight. You know, Carson talks a tough fight.
Well, because
all of these guys on the right talk a tough fight.
Because you're
two of them. I think Lindsey Graham is the only one with military experience, which that's scary.
When you're the president, you are in charge of the greatest military in the world, whether you like it or not.
Right.
Bill Clinton didn't like it.
Right.
Okay. Although he used the heck out of it to, promote basically nation building. Mm-hmm. It's the wrong thing to do with the military. I think you're right. I don't think there's anybody else. Now, Hillary Clinton tried to join the Marines.
Are you serious?
No, but I'm serious that that's
ridiculous.
what she claimed. No, I'm serious. That's what she claimed. Okay, that's how ridiculous it is. But no, you're right. Carson was, I think Rick Perry was, but of course he's not in the race anymore.
He was National Guard, though.
Yep.
I mean, I don't know. I don't consider that.
Well, so was George W. Bush.
I don't consider that. I mean, George W. was clearly using George H.W. Bush's influence
not to go to Vietnam.
To not go to Vietnam.
Well, I mean, look, where did it get John McCain? I mean, he didn't exactly get the presidency. The tide has changed. The people who were growing up in that era, who had a disdain for Vietnam, are in charge now. And you think that's bad. What do you think it's going to be like, in 20 more years when the current crop of millennials are running for the presidency or other elected positions?
Yeah, okay, I'm looking at doing some research. Rick Perry, Lindsey Graham, and Jim Webb were the only ones. Jim Webb.
The Democrat, the lone Democrat.
Yeah, and of course he was an admiral in the United States Navy.
That's right. He was no joke.
He is no joke. He's he was a heroic, bona fide hero as well. Rick Perry, Jim Webb are gone now. It's only Lindsey Graham
Right.
left. And let me tell you, Lindsey Graham's just a joke.
Yeah, Lindsey Graham doesn't have a chance.
Thank God.
So, it is what it is. But I think there's a greater point in that politics and politicians have ruined the military. It's been like that ever since George Patton got in trouble for slapping the private during World War II. I mean, let's face it, it's gone back way further than that. But that was a great example of how politicians get in the way, and political correctness has really overtaken the military. Now we're talking about transgenders in the military. We're talking about women now going to serve in every combat role. Every combat role.
Yeah, now the Marines have acquiesced.
And so the politicians over time have taken over the military. There are very few pure military strategists and tacticians who are really in charge anymore in leadership positions. Pretty much they're all politicians.
Yeah.
And because of that, I think you're going to see that our military is going to kind of take a nosedive in terms of the quality and the quantity of what we have to provide. And I think that, par for the course, whoever's going to be our commander-in-chief isn't really going to know how to handle the military. But that's okay, because the people who are in charge of the military don't even know how to handle the military anymore.
That's exactly right. It is strange days indeed, and it makes you worry about the future of our country. Yeah, it'll be interesting to see how this thing continues to pan out. But talk is cheap. These guys who talk about being tough here and tough there and have never wore boots themselves. It's just kind of, I don't know. I find it irritating. On the other hand, you want a strong president. You got to have one that's willing to do it. Ronald Reagan was phenomenal in that respect. He was able to end, the Cold War without firing a single bullet. And yet here was a guy whose military experience, his life was never threatened. He wasn't a Jimmy Stewart. Jimmy Stewart, who did untold number of missions as a bomber. In fact, it was like a record number of missions, at any of which he could have got shot down. He had a pretty convenient military experience. Ted Williams, the great baseball player, he was involved in bombing experiences. It's not like there weren't people who could have figured out how to navigate around that and avoid it, and they chose not to.
Right.
Ted Williams, by the way, he served in the military twice, both in the Korea conflict and in World War II. Volunteering in both.
Yeah.
They like to they like to disparage him today, but he was a great American.
Few people know about Charles Durning.
Yes.
I mean, he was like the most decorated. I mean, but yeah, I mean, the time. How many actors? Can you imagine Hollywood actors, Kevin? Any Hollywood actors being, so moved that even after 9/11 that they were going to go sign up and join the military and go fight?
Yeah, I think you're right. I think
wouldn't happen.
It wouldn't happen. And I wonder how much their anti-military position is kind of a reaction formation. To use a psychological expression that Freud, I believe, developed. Reaction formation. We got to take this entirely hostile position in order to protect our veneer. You know what I'm saying? Because how else do I defend the fact that I will not serve in the military under any circumstances? So I'll disparage the military entirely.
Yeah,
you know what I'm saying?
I think it comes more from their worldview and the fact that they really loathe America as being the superpower.
Yeah,
they loathe it, and so they don't. And frankly, Barack Obama loathes it. He does not want us to be the superpower. So those Hollywood actors, already have that's why they're so behind Barack Obama. Yeah. They love him so much because they share that worldview that America shouldn't be on top.
America is the problem around the world rather than hopefully a source of solutions. Interesting topic. All right, when we come back, more for you. We want to remind you, the show continues 24/7 at priceofbusiness.com. While there, like it on Facebook, follow it on Twitter. Stay tuned for more.